Good evening. I declare the agenda briefing open at 6 p.m. Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting today is being held on Whadjuk Noongar Budja, and I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I thank all past and present members of the community that have supported the city to better understand and value Noongar culture within the city of Wanneroo. I invite you to bow your head in prayer. Lord, we thank you for your blessing our city, our community and our council. Guide us all in our decision-making to act fairly, without fear or favour, and with compassion, integrity, wisdom and honesty. May we show true leadership, be inclusive of all, and guide all of the city's people and many families to a prosperous future that all may share. We ask this in your name. Amen. Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of the meeting can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo YouTube channel. Item 1, attendances. There has been no electronic attendance request and Councillor Moore is on parental leave. Item 3, deputations. Deputations must relate to a report on the current agenda briefing agenda. A deputation is not to exceed 3 speakers in number and only those speakers may address the council members. Speakers of a deputation will collectively have a maximum of up to 10 minutes, dependent on the number of deputations received, to address council members unless an extension of time is granted. A deputation is to be in the form of a statement and no debate or discussion on the matter is to occur. Questions from council members relating to the subject matter should be reserved until the administration has presented on the relevant report during the meeting. However, a point of clarification by a council member on a specific statement may be permitted. Public questions are not heard at an agenda briefing meeting and will be heard at an ordinary council meeting. The following deputations have been confirmed that is on item 4.4 and 4.5 by Michael Kayakob. Mr Kayakob, would you like to come and take the podium? You have 10 minutes, so I just want you to understand that that's to be divided between both items. Thank you, Mr Kayakob. If you press the white button, there you're on now. Thank you.
You're okay? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand the terms that you've expressed. My name is Michael Kayakob. I'd like 1 Tandara Fairway tapping, and my deputation is relating to items 4.4 and 4.5, the Neerabup Resource Recovery Precinct. We're all aware of our waste. Many of us are conscientious recyclers, minimisers, composters, reusers and regifters. Since the gifting of land in Mindarie for waste services in 81 and commencement of landfill in 91, it's always been known that there was an end of life for the Tamala Park landfill. Since that time, and looking extensively at the public record, I can see little or no effort to adequately deal with our waste long term other than this NRRP. We pay extensive rates, we pay big dollars for executives, we pay for seminars, we pay for regional councils, we pay for consultants and employees. We pay allowances and benefits, and now we're paying again for a waste precinct that was never envisaged in our Neerabup industrial area. We have paid for town planning scheme amendments and structure plan amendments, only to find that these amendments are not in our best interests at all. These amendments were purposeful and with intent. And now we have the NRRP with the provision for a waste-to-energy incinerator that the administration has now disowned and now calls new technology. A waste-to-energy system the residents told you all, particularly the administration, was not acceptable to our community. Elected members, administration and CEO, where are the advocacy drives to importers, wholesalers and manufacturers to reduce and improve packaging? The recycling businesses, the value-adding businesses, the start-up businesses, the current businesses turning waste into usable products. The business is making our lives better by repurposing waste. We have a large unused industrial area that's being wasted by a lack of foresight and investment and willingness. Yet here we are attempting to develop an additional enabling transfer station to feed a waste incinerator. As systems that will lay waste to our industrial area due to its pollutants and provide no financial returns, only clean-ups. Bassendean has a waste-to-energy free policy. Latest reports, 2023 from Australia, condemn waste-to-energy. Europe and USA are banning these systems. The Dutch studies have shown the devastating effects of these incinerators. Has anyone here been provided with the studies by administration? We are told the waste-to-energy incinerator may not happen for 10 to 20 years. Mr. Ford said it may never go ahead. Really? So why are we working to that timeline to organise our city into why aren't we working to that timeline to organise our city into a recycling, repurposing, value-adding, technology-driven, world showcase example of how to manage our waste from beginning to end? A circular economy, a true circular economy. Councillors, there's no urgency here. Delay your administration, take control of the situation and the administration and start work for the future of our city and children. Now. Not in 2 years, not in 5 years and not in 10 years, but now. It is you that govern the local government's affairs and plan strategically for the future of this district. Provide strategic direction to the CEO, represent the interests of electors, ratepayers and residents of the district, and take into account the interests of other persons who work in or visit our district. Facilitate communication with the community about council decisions, and the council must make its decisions on the basis of evidence, on the merits and in accordance with the law. I know it's hard with the volumes of reports, officers pressuring you, ratepayers at you, and decisions to be made. And I've seen the agenda tonight, it's nearly as big as the last couple. Just remember, if you're not provided with adequate balanced reporting, or you feel you're not fully informed, or you feel you are pressured into making decisions, or the community you represent is not informed or engaged, push back. That's your role. Your ratepayers wish to engage meaningfully, but we have been prevented by Officers' Advocacy Project and a lack of consultation from the onset. Let's get our waste systems in place for the future, walk hand in hand, obtain social licences for all that's needed, protect and enhance our environment, build assets for the future and leave a legacy for our children that we can all be proud of. The answer is not waste to energy, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. We are going to go straight to assets, item 4.4 and 4.5, the Neerabutt Resource Recovery Precinct. Mr. Singh, would you like to comment and discuss your report? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. From assets, we have two items on the agenda, item 4.4 and 4.5. Both relate to Neerabutt Resource Recovery Precinct Stage 1. First item is about the outcome of community engagement, which was completed in by December 2025. And the second one is about the Section 3.5 business plan outcome of the submissions which we received during advertising period. And both reports are taken as read. We have provided a lot of information in the report and the attachments, and that is before you for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Councillors, do we have any questions on item 4.4? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a few questions on this item tonight, if I may. My first question refers to page 156. It's in the little table at the bottom. It's the third item down. And it says, this is a fully enclosed warehouse building and all waste from the waste transfer station will be moved from this facility by the end of the day to off-site land facilities of waste to energy plants for processing. Can I have it confirmed exactly where the waste-to-energy facilities are, as there's none in the city of Wanneroo? Where is it proposed we're going to take our waste, please, so it's clear for everybody? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In Perth metro area, there are 2 waste-to-energy facilities being constructed or being, one of them being made operational. Both are south of the river. One is in Rockingham, the other one in Kunana.
Councillor Berry, you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On page 159, it says additional information has been sent to residents within a 5-kilometre radius of the NRRP. Can I ask when this letter was sent out, as we've received an email from a member of the public saying that not everybody's had this letter yet? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. That was sent out last week.
Thank you. Councillor Berry, you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. On the same page, it says once the Department of Water and Environment Regulation starts its assessment process, a 28-day public advertisement and comments period will commence. Has administration got any idea of when this will be advertised for everybody to have their say? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. The process is as part of an application for works approval. We had a meeting with the department, and department asked for a number of reports and documentations, which our consultants have prepared, and they've been provided to the department. As part of their process, they are validating all the information. Once they're satisfied that they have enough information, they got full information, which they're indicating they have, and they are treating this matter quite significant. Yeah, they're treating this application as significant application. And once they are fully satisfied, they are ready to advertise, they will commence the 28-day advertising period. We think that it's likely to happen sometime this month, maybe next week or week after.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 160, it actually says our strategic implications for a sustainable city to turn waste into a community value. Can administration explain what they mean by this? Because my understanding of community value is intent to create a circular economy where waste streams are treated as resources for new products, jobs and social benefit. How would administration explain this statement? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As part of this project proposal, we are proposing that there should be construction of a community recycling center. That's where community can bring in waste and it will be segregated on site. Then it will be sent to different places where it can be processed for reuse or repurposes. The second one is a waste transfer station where waste will come in and will be sent out to appropriate waste management facility. The third one is the material recycling facility. That's where our yellow bin recycling materials will go in. Again, the purpose of that facility will be to separate all the waste or different types of waste like, say, metals, cans, paper, cardboard. All of that will be then used as a commodity to be sent out to other people who can use it. So that the purpose is to have the different kinds of waste come in, be separated out, and then sent away for reuse or repurposing.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Berry.
My last question is, will there be further community engagement as we are all hearing the concerns that the community around us have for this facility? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. In line with our own council-adopted community engagement policy and procedures, we have undertaken community engagement. As part of that one, there was a drop-in session conducted where we provided information. There has been a further request was there for a formal Q&A session that was also arranged. We have been providing information through city's websites, regularly updating FAQ document. Having said all of that, that is done by the city based on the information we have from our consultants. Now all that information has been, and the remainder of information being the community engagement outcome, depending on council decision, will be passed on to Department of Water and Environment Regulation. They are the independent regulators, totally independent, mandated by the state government to look at such projects, assess it, then consider issuing approval or not. And as part of their own process as independent regulator, they will be also undertaking community, not engagement, they will be opening a 28-day community submission period where community can contact the department, provide their submissions.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Hugh Newen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a number of questions. Firstly, would administration agree that the Neerabub Resource Recovery Project has attracted wide and significant attention from the community and residents?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'll treat it as an opinion, so it's difficult for me to respond that is significant or not.
Councillor Hugh Nguyen. Councillor
My
Hugh
second
Nguyen, you have
question.
another question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Would administration agree that the concerns and questions raised by the community and residents in relation to this project, which were raised at last week's AGM, were all reasonable and warrants looking into and answers to be provided?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, at the AGM, the motions or questions we received at AGM will be responded, I think, as part of a report coming to Council at March Council meeting.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Hugh Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. Last question. So if the questions and concerns raised at last week's AGM by the community and residents were significant and reasonable, would administration agree that it would be both sensible, prudent and reasonable for these items 4.4 and 4.5 to be deferred after administration had provided a response to the concerns and issues raised by the community before proceeding any further?
Mr Singh. Thank you. Thank you. Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the matters may be considered, they are linked, but at the same time, this is up to Council to now to consider the reports which we are presenting, that we completed the community engagement process and Council can consider this item. And similarly, the business plan submissions been received. We have documented them and presented a report to Council. It is for Council to make a decision on these two items.
Councillors, do I have any more questions on item 4.4, please? Councillor Hugh Nguyen.
Madam Mayor, just in response to the answers given, I foreshadow a deferral for not next week, for the council meeting coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do I have any other questions on item 4.4? Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr Singh, just in regards to, through yourself, Mayor, in regards to the community engagement policy and legislation, is that the minimum standard we're meant to meet?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. We have looked at this project. Assessed as significant in our own. We did the assessment under city's own community engagement process. There is a procedure outlined and we assessed the level of engagement. I think we've gone above that one in this particular case, given that initial community engagement was for a certain period, I think 28-day period, where there was going to be drop-in session and we were sharing the information with the community. As a result of that one, community feedback was that period to be extended, and community requested a further Q&A session that was arranged. Community engagement period was extended to 17th of December. And during that period, community still had further comments and further views that the wider community, up to 5 kilometer radius from that site, be advised of report coming to council. We've done that as well. So it's over and above what our community engagement policy would be requiring us to do.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Bedworth, do you have any more questions? Okay, any more questions on this item? Councillor Parker?
Yeah, just a quick one, because I know there's about 48 people here this evening. How many people attended the drop-in sessions and the community engagement sessions that you had?
Mr Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The first session, drop-in session, I think there were about 80, and the Q&A session were 30.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In light of what Councillor Nguyen has just said about maybe deferring this, can I ask, given that Tamala Park is shortly to close and we're well aware of that, how long will it take to build a new facility in Neerabub or anywhere else to accommodate the waste for the whole of the city of Wanneroo? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I may get Mr. Ford to talk about the construction side, but before we do that, there is a formal approval still pending from Department of Water Environment Regulation. This is a step in the process. The city is doing what city has to do. All the documentation, all the outcome of community engagement will be provided to DWR. That is kind of the last piece of information we need to provide to them. Department will take their own time. They have certain days and certain weeks to consider that information. That until they make the call, project can't start. So we have the construction timelines, what can happen once the approval is granted, and that Mr. Ford can outline.
Mr Ford.
So the construction timeline for the WTS and the CRC is 18 months. They'd be built concurrently. WTS is about 12 months and CRC is about 18 months.
Thank you. Any other questions on item 4.4, councillors? If there are no questions on item 4.4, we'll now go to item 4.5. Mr Singh, would you like to speak to item 4.5?
No, Mayor, we'll be happy to answer any questions council members may have.
Thank you, councillors. Do I have any questions on item 4.5? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. At the bottom of page 215, the last paragraph says the governance model for the NRRP has been developed to guide the delivery of NRRP Stage 1 infrastructure while maintaining flexibility for future stages. Can somebody explain to me, please, what future stages? And I'm not aware that we are currently considering a waste to transfer station. I believe that we are not doing that now. So could somebody please confirm, sorry, waste to energy facility, could somebody please confirm what future stages may look like? Thank you.
Mr Ford.
The current stage is stage 1, which is for a waste transfer station. It's for a CRC and it's for a MRF. So that's currently what's been presented in front of everyone at this stage. As part of the master plan, we had to look at what the waste requirements for the city were for the next 40 or 50 years. So the second stage or potential stage was for potentially a waste to energy facility. When we looked at the waste requirements over the next 30 or 40 years, from a city's point of view, it was going to have to transfer its waste long distances once Tamala Park closes. Now, the two options there are to send it to another landfill site or to use the waste-to-energy facilities in Kwinana and Rockingham. Ideally, from an efficiency point of view, the city would prefer to process its waste closer to home. Approximate costs for transferring waste are about $30–40 a tonne. And when you consider that we'll double our waste over the next, between now and 2040, that's significant costs that the city's going to incur. So we looked at what we could do if we were to process it locally. The current options is really a waste-to-energy facility. So we looked at what size land component would be required for that, and we've effectively just land banked that particular size piece of land. So whether the city does go ahead and make it into a waste-to-energy facility or whether there's some other technology that's used, at least we know that we've got some land that is banked that we're able to do that. The other stage then is north of the site itself, which we've put aside for associated businesses. So businesses that spring off as part of what we're doing in the waste precinct itself, like recycling mattresses or tyres or those sort of ancillary-added industries.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question from me, and touching on what Mr Ford's just presented to us. Has the city done any costings in regards to processing waste locally versus driving it down south or to Red Hill, and what that would be as a result on the waste fee for residents and how much of an increase that would be over the next 30 to 40 years?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of some previous work which we did last year or in 2024, I think it was, we did look at that if city were to travel to, say, Kwinana, Rockingham or Red Hill, additional cost per tonne is basically either travelling from here to there directly or through a transfer station and using then the bigger trucks from private sector. It could be about $40 to $50 a tonne extra driving that far. So that's the main difference of just in transport. The cost to manage, cost to process the waste is unlikely to change regardless of the location. So it's mainly the cost of transport.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, you have another question?
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose could we get some more information in the council report with a direct comparison so we can actually understand and community can understand roughly what their rates are going to look like and the makeup of the waste fee for the next 20 to 30 years with both options presented? Because I think it's quite important to actually understand what this precinct is. I know there's one component that community seems to be upset about, but I haven't heard many other concerns about the components of it. So I'm just wanting to know, because it adds to the overall decision making for council. So could we get that financial information in the report, please?
Thank you, Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We will do some cost estimates based on what we know the transport rates are likely to be, what the handling cost will be. So once waste goes into waste transfer station, it has to be then bulked up and then loaded up into larger trucks. So there's some handling costs. So we'll work it out, some estimates, and then include that information in the report.
Any other questions, councillors? I just have a question. Can we please add to the report the total tonnage of waste the City of Wanneroo produces at the moment and the total tonnage of waste we're expecting to have by in 40 years' time? And with that relevance, the cost per tonne of transport, because it's okay saying it'll cost $30 or $40 extra per tonne, but I think we need to understand the quantity of waste that will be transported to understand the total cost factors that we're working with, dealing with as well. Would that be okay, Mr Singh?
Yes, Mayor, we have some numbers and we can use some projections, advice from our consultants on that as well.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Are there any other questions, councillors? If there are no other questions, that ends that item for this evening for assets. Thank you everyone for attending. We now go back to the agenda proper and we go to item 4 planning and sustainability. Mr Lee, if you would like to take the podium. Thank you. Sorry, Mr Lee, are there any items you'd like to speak to this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 items from Planning and Sustainability this evening. I'd just like to speak to item 4.1 being the item on amendment number 214 to our district's planning scheme, the East Wanneroo District Structure Plan Area Development Contribution Plan.
Mr Lee, could you just get a little bit closer to the microphone and speak a little bit louder? Thank you.
I certainly can. Thank you.
And also, welcome. This is your first cycle of council. Welcome to the City of Wanneroo council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and through you. As mentioned, the purpose of this item is for council to consider the submissions received during public advertising for amendment number 214 to our district planning scheme. Amendment 214 will introduce a development contribution plan for the East Wanneroo District Structure Plan area. There's broad alignment between the administration's recommendation and the views held by key landowners of the East Wanneroo area. These areas of agreement seek to bring the DCP into alignment with SPP 3.6 and include reducing the timeframe of the DCP to 10 years. It seeks to revise the dwelling yield assumptions, adopting an average yield, or an average lot size rather, of 350 square metres. It looks to review the delivery of community facilities to align with an average lot size of 350 square metres, and it looks to exclude wetland management as a DCP cost. While there is broad support for the city's recommendation, the UDIA has recently written to the city and requested several specific amendments to the DCP. Their submission reiterates the application of the community infrastructure cap of $5,000 per lot. It suggests the state government's Metropolitan Region Improvement Fund be used to fund land acquisition costs for roads that will ultimately be reserved under the Metropolitan Region scheme, and it seeks to reduce the scope of Franklin Road upgrades and to remove Badger Up Road upgrades entirely from the 10-year horizon for the DCP. Despite UDIA's position, the city remains of the view that the district DCP is the appropriate vehicle to fund land acquisition costs for road upgrades at this time, and that the scope of works for both Franklin Road and Badgerup Road is appropriate based on our review of main roads modelling. If supported by Council, the modifications that the administration recommends would require some significant reworking by the Department of Planning, and we believe that will mean that the DCP is some time off before it's actually endorsed and able to be implemented. And so to that end, we're seeking Council's support to establish an interim contribution rate that'll allow us to start taking contributions from subdivisions that are already occurring, allowing us to start building a bank to purchase land and fund infrastructure upgrades. And with that, Mayor, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillors, do I have any questions on item 4.1? I'll go to Deputy Mayor Miles first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do have a few because the report has quite a number of items that I'm concerned about. And in general, I'm reasonably happy, but my first question is on page 4. And administration, and I think I understand why we want to do the shorter time frames that manage the district DCP. But my question is the management of that district DCP, because if we're doing it in 10-year stages, which I understand the method behind it, how are we going to deliver infrastructure that may be in the 12th year or 14th year? So how's administration going to control that if it's only going to have a 10-year DDCP?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. There's a couple of ways it will be addressed. So within the 10-year timeframe of the DCP, our DCPs are subject to annual reviews. That gives us the opportunity to look at the growth rate relative to what is included in the DCP, and if there are adjustments required to, say, bring forward infrastructure that was forecast beyond the 10-year horizon, we're able to do that. Also, whilst this DCP is intended to have a 10-year timeframe, it would be the intent to have rolling DCP, so after 10 years there would be another one come in, after that 10 years another one to come in as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You answered my second question, which was good. On page 7, I just want to ask how administration is going to get the time of the roads. Requiring upgrades, when will that work and commence, and how does council get assurances that the roads are going to be constructed in a timely and a manner? Bearing in mind you're indicating that you're trying to get an agreement from developers to widen roads as opposed to the city taking control. So I'm concerned, knowing what happens on the coastal corridor, where developers will only do the bit that they need and then they walk away and people lose access. So we need to keep traffic moving. So how is administration going to police that if it's only a voluntary agreement?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I might start and then invite Mr Dixon to add some further detail. Perhaps just to clarify the last statement, Councillor, the DCP won't be a voluntary agreement. It will be a requirement of developers. It will form a condition of their subdivision approval, and in order to get clearances and create titles for land, they'll have to satisfy those conditions. So if there's an obligation imposed on them through the subdivision condition, I'm very confident that they'll be obligated to contribute. In relation to the timing for roads, it is certainly a challenging one. East Wanneroo does have a high degree of land fragmentation, and for part that is why we're seeking council to support us with an interim contribution rate ahead of the DCP being implemented. It'll allow us to start collecting funds that we can use for land acquisition to widen road reserves. It will also mean that we'll be able to start spending those funds that we collect on infrastructure items, but ultimately it will be a combination of being proponent-led to a degree, because they control when they choose to subdivide and create the need for road upgrades, but certainly the ability to acquire land and fund that infrastructure is key. What is also very key and something that we're having conversations with the department proactively is for them to finalise road design so we actually know what the road reserve width is, so then we know how much land we do need to acquire. And Mayor, if I may, I'll just invite Mr Dixon to add anything further.
Thank you, Mr Dixon.
That was a very comprehensive response. There's only a couple of things that I may just add for the elected members' benefit. So the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage are preparing road designs at the moment. 15% design is what they're called. That's due to go out for consultation mid this year. This is the current timeframe. Once they've gone through consultation, received feedback from the residents and other stakeholders, they'll then prepare a Metropolitan Region Scheme amendment, and that will define the exact boundary of the road reserve to accommodate the upgrades that we're looking for in East Wanneroo. At that stage, we'll then be able to proactively go out to acquire the land necessary to then build the roads. And that timeframe is partly dependent on the department completing the first stage of the process. We also will be working with all stakeholders to complete designs with the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, so we can try and streamline the process as much as possible to ensure that we deliver the roads as quickly as possible for the local community.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. I was only reading from the first paragraph, Mr Lee, where it says, provided as part of the subdivisional process, widening and construction free of cost by the abutting subdivider through a voluntary agreement and a cash contribution. It says, because not all of them want a DCP. That's where I was getting that point from.
Mr Lee.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for clarifying, Councillor Miles. I think the reference in the report there relates to the non-DCP related roads, but thank you for clarifying that for me.
Thank you. Any more questions? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Just into consideration, obviously, I understand on the same page, we are not liable for the state government's PTA alignment, but I am concerned that we're going to hold up a vital piece of road infrastructure because a government agency may not be on the ball following the WAPC's approval process, especially when there's been, some 15,000 homes, not going to be released straight away, but they've approved 15,000 homes in three of those precincts, and we need the road upgrades sooner. So I'm concerned that we might say, well, we've got to wait for PTA, we've got to wait for PTA. Surely we don't have to wait for a government department to put a road upgrade in.
Mr Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Again, if I may, I might begin with a response, and if Mr Dixon has anything further to add, I'll ask him to do so. But the 15% road design that Mr Dixon referred to in an earlier response, whilst it'll establish the road design, it should also take into account the PTA corridor as well and establish at least some guidance as to the what and how for that PTA corridor. The timing is something that the city is very mindful of and something that we have been discussing internally, ways that we can impress upon the state the urgency of finalising those designs, because really determining those designs is just the beginning of a cascade of a whole series of events that needs to take place before we can physically construct roads. So it is something that we're very mindful of, and we are pursuing the state on that. But Mr Dixon might like to contribute exactly what we are doing in that space.
Mr Dixon.
So we are liaising very closely. Mr Thompson as well is here, who's one of our engineers that's working proactively on trying to define the detailed design for the 15% design. In this case, it is frustrating because the Public Transport Authority that will deliver the transit corridor, the public transit corridor, which is likely to be a bus transit corridor at this stage, They need to integrate their design into the road design, the dual carriageway for Franklin Road and Elliott Road. So we are, as Mr. Lee pointed out, we are working, trying very hard to push for the state government to finalise those designs, do the public consultation, and then define the MRS amendment so we can then start to actively implement the developer contributions plan.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the work administration's doing because we are in the hands of agencies that are not front-facing to residents like we are. So is it possible then that maybe you can give some indication in the report that it clearly states that we're being held up by PTA, but I think we need to try and establish some timelines, because if we don't establish any timelines, things I think are just going to slip further and further away, and it's going to be 10 years before we get some upgrades to roads that are already at capacity. So I would like to see some attempt to try and get some sort of firm indications. I know we said that we're going to go out in July for the 15%, but however, it sounds to me like there's probably after that going to be another year before we'll have a proper road design for the upgrading, unless you can do it quicker.
Mr Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'll invite Mr Dixon to respond to that, because I understand there have been conversations being had around timeframes that predate my arrival at the city.
Mr Dixon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. It is frustrating for administration because we were originally told that the public consultation was going to happen last year, and now it's been delayed. So we can reach out to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage and try and get a firm date from them. At the moment, they're saying mid this year in terms of that consultation. What I do understand that they've firmed up some of the designs for some of the roads, particularly the ones more to the west, but they still haven't finalised the Hawkins Road, which is further to the east, and they want to go out for consultation on all of those designs. However, we will provide further information in the report for 2 weeks' time and seek some clarification and try and get a firmer deadline.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. I'll go to Councillor Figg, because Councillor Mize has had a few questions. Councillor Figg, have you got some questions? Then I'll come back to you, Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you. I've only got one, so it'll be back to you soon, Councillor. Deputy Mayor. It does kind of go to Councillor or Deputy Mayor Miles' first question about the DDCP. And I know it might be a difficult one to answer, but I'm going to try and ask it, and hopefully there is an answer to it. So a shorter DPC operational period, would that favour any particular mover, a developer? Would it favour a first moving developer, second moving, very late moving, in that they don't have to contribute as much per hectare or per lot?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. No, I don't think it would. In my view, it wouldn't favour or disadvantage one developer over another. I think the 10-year timeframe or the reduced timeframe really just establishes the clear link between the infrastructure that is needed based on the demand within a reasonable timeframe, rather than trying to seek contribution for infrastructure that might not be needed for 30 or 40 years' time. So it's really just trying to strongly establish that need and nexus relationship.
Thank you, Mr Lee. I'll go to Councillor Huntley next, and then to Deputy Mayor. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You talked about the transport corridor and obviously Franklin Road being dualled, but just for the community's benefit, Franklin Road will obviously start where Lenore finishes, so at the roundabout there, and then Franklin Road will continue to where?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Franklin will continue north to Neves Road.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Councillor Huntley?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So if it's going, so obviously at the moment it bears harsh round towards Cape Horn, so it will then go through up towards Townsend, is that correct?
No, Neves, he said. Neves.
How does
Mr.
it
Lee?
get to Neves?
Mr.
Will
Lee?
it be using Penjar?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. After Cape Horn, it does head north. It bends slightly to the east, not quite as far as Townsend, but it sort of makes its way. It shares a T intersection with Coogee Road before making its way up to Neves. The intersection with Neves is a little bit east of Bardi Road.
There was an attachment.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we have that clarified with a map? Because at the moment that is very confusing as to how those roads are actually going to change. And Franklin Road, obviously at the moment, bears round straight into Cape Horn. There's going to be a lot of homes then built for Cape Horn. That road is already at maximum during peak hours. So I think the community need to know exactly what's happening and how Cape Horn will be relieved if Franklin is going to be diverted elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think the best visual representation of the future road layout, particularly for Franklin Road, would be attachment 3 that's included in the report. But certainly, in terms of engaging with community and keeping them up to date with what is happening, that's something that the city is talking about. Administration are talking about the best way that we can keep an ongoing dialogue with community, because things are, as elected members appreciate, things are changing quite rapidly out there, and we do recognise the need to make sure community are aware of those updates. So we are discussing how we can best do that.
Thank you. One more question and then I'll go across to Councillor Wright before I go back to Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Huntley.
So regarding the map, could we have a satellite view? Because doing just a pencil sketch, it's just not efficient. You can't really tell where it's going or where it's not going. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question for this item, and it was regards to the delivery of community facilities and infrastructure, and the proposed change going on an average lot size of 350 metres squared. Could I just confirm that it's on the administration's radar to, I guess, look at different ways of delivering that infrastructure, such as the developers doing it instead of us? So I just wanted to confirm whether that conversation's being had, as I know with the time frames, realistically looking at our capital works program to try and achieve some of this infrastructure in that 10-year plan might be quite challenging. So I'm just wanting to make sure that that avenue's not closed with some of these changes that are being proposed.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. In short, that those opportunities aren't being closed in terms of what the city's recommendation is seeking to do. There are a number of different ways community facilities can be delivered, and one of them that is available is for it to be delivered by the developer using funds from the DCP or something similar. I think the city would be open to it, but we'd need to make sure it actually works for the city as well. And so certainly understand that there's an opportunity there to bring forward the delivery of some community infrastructure, but the city would have to make sure that it satisfies our needs as well.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. Just moving off the road issue, the community facilities gap, and I heard what you said before, that the developers are obviously seeking some sort of a state commitment using the improvement fund that may require some changes to the Act. But is there, I know that in the report, administration have said that they've tried to advocate to put a CPI increase or something like that on, and we all agree with that because you can't just cap it from 2019. But have we also maybe requested from State Treasury or some other agency some sort of commitment to help cover the difference? I know that developers are doing what they're doing, but has administration done anything as far as saying we actually need an extra $2,000 per lot? Can the state government come up with that as their way to help reduce the cost to the community and mainly our ratepayers as a whole?
Mr Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. At the moment, the city hasn't, or the administration hasn't, but we're certainly happy to take that on notice and give some thought about what opportunities there might be. Just in relation to the community infrastructure cap, whilst it has been foreshadowed as an issue in some of the submissions we received, where the district level community infrastructure per lot requirement doesn't exceed that cap yet. The per lot contribution is about 4,300 from memory. What we are aware of, however, for local community infrastructure that would be subject to DCPs, when you add the two together, that's where there's the risk of creating that funding gap. But certainly happy to explore what other opportunities there might be to close that gap or cover that gap.
Thank you, Mr Lee. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. Just moving on, again in the same area, you've got in one of the paragraphs on page 9 that you're going to seek legal advice is being sought for the possibility of putting an interim agreement in place. Have you already received that advice, or because the way it's read here is you're going to seek it, and I'm just wondering why administration would only now be doing that if it hasn't already.
Mr Lee. Ms Coles.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. When this report was put through to print, we were still waiting for the final legal advice to come through. We have received the final legal advice. There's a couple of things that the team need to work through, but all in all, there won't be an issue with the voluntary agreements.
Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you. One of the concerns looking at on page 9 in the table, over the 10 years we're going to be charging nearly $3.2 million just to administrate the DCP. That sounds quite excessive. Can you explain why it would be so high?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd invite Mr Dixon to respond to that question. Thank you.
Mr Dixon.
I actually think it's a bargain, 3.2 million. When I explained to you that it doesn't just cover administration costs, it's also engaging consultants. We need valuers, QS advice each year as part of annual reviews, and all that's fed into the costs. So over a 10-year period, it's actually quite good value, the city managing that process and engaging all the necessary consultants that we need in order to keep you informed on progress.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Just to finish on that one then, Mr Dixon, has there been any comment regarding administration costs from the developers?
Mr Dixon.
Yes, they're highly delighted with the costs because we've certainly recommended a slight reduction based on the revised scope of works for a 10-year period rather than a 50-year period. So we've received positive feedback from the industry in terms of the proposed administration costs. Noting that this is an estimate, the actual costs will be charged when we tot up our administration costs plus all the other consultants, and that's what's included in annual reviews. So it's an estimate, but it's quite an accurate estimate.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you. Just with regard, on page 10, Mr Lee, administration are sort of working roughly on a valuation for the land that may need to be purchased for other uses, roads and what have you. and we're going to work on the basis of 1.8 million per hectare. I'm assuming that once that gets put in place the first time, within 12 months that'll be revalued, which I'm assuming will be maybe a slightly higher amount because it then will be residential. Would that be correct?
Mr Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yes, that's my understanding.
Thank you. Any more questions, councillors? If there are no more questions on this item, councillors, we now go to item 4.2, preparation of amendment number 217 to District Planning Scheme number 2, normalisation of land in the Bankshire Grove agreed local structure plan number 21 area. Do we have any, Mr Lee, do you want to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I don't. Happy to take any questions, though. Thanks.
Okay, councillors, do we have any questions on item 4.2? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr Lee, just on page 75, it's been one of my passions by me and the ward councillors, previously Councillor Huntley and now Councillor Moore. The community purpose site in Bankshire Grove has still yet to be taken over for the community purpose as it was originally set out for. And there is a paragraph at the bottom as to say, well, it sort of doesn't matter because we're going to have a site in East Wanneroo, in the Wanneroo East District Community Facilities. Can you tell me who the owner is and why we haven't put the pressure on to acquire the land for its original designated purpose?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I would have to take the question on notice. I'm not too sure of the landowners within the district centre. I am aware that there was some work that the administration did on this particular issue, and I think discussed with elected members in about the middle of 2024. I'll be quite happy to dig that information out and share it with elected members because it might speak to that particular question, and I'll provide any further updates that's transpired between then and now.
Thank you. Any other questions on item 4.2? If there are no other questions on item 4.2, we now go to item 4.3 and I will leave the room for this item. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, will you come and take the chair? Thank you.
Okay, councillors, the Mayor has left the room, but not the building. Item 4.3, Mr Lee, do you want to discuss this one?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you. No, I don't, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillors, have we got any questions? Councillor Min Nguyen.
Questions is on page 123. The second dot point regarding the exemptions that's available, where it's got unhosted STRA where it is booked for less than 90 days. Should that say, instead of booked, operated for less than 90 days?
Mr Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you. I think I'll take that question on notice. What I'd like to do is just to double check the legislation and see what reference it makes. If it is different to that, then we'll happily update that. And if not, we'll just confirm that that is what the legislation states.
It's got a few questions.
Councillor Min Nguyen.
Yes, so the policy seems to be referring to the word operated, and it doesn't make sense just based on what it says that it is booked for less than 90 days in a 12-month period. The intentions is, I assume, is for a new provider to be operating within 12 months to have that exemption. The other reference in there, I think, seems to be incorrect. Clause within the same dot point, 61(2)(e) to B. I've checked the regulations. There's no E to B there. Is A to B. but that deals with advertisement. How is that relevant where it says comply with the criteria set out in clause 61(2) of the regulations? Can you explain what that additional criteria means?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you. I'll take that question and notice as well. I don't have the local planning scheme regulations in front of me, but I'm happy to take that question on notice and investigate and provide you with an update.
Thank you. Just
Councillor Van Nguyen.
and I'm trying to sort of understand why we're putting this minimum 2 nights stay, and I understand the concerns that are raised and the reason behind it. But and one of that mentions that it's to assist with enforcement. But I mean, how fast do we act upon complaints? Do we, I mean, based on our resources, do we go out on the same day that it's, or within 48 hours? What's our experience like?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll invite our Manager of Approval Services, Nick DeVekis, to answer, please.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The Compliance Department would be responsible for going out and enforcing any sort of compliance for, I guess, STRA-related amenity issues, noise complaints, anything along those lines. To answer your question simply, it isn't immediate, the response, because the response is highly reactive. It requires the resident to lodge a complaint. The complaint has to go through our system. It gets logged, goes through to the Compliance Department. The Compliance Department has to then investigate. So it wouldn't be an immediate response. The resident would have the ability to contact our rangers for any sort of immediate response relating to noise complaints. But that is partly the reason why we have included a minimum 2-night stay. So the position statement that the state government has released nominates that as one of the ways in which the policy can, I guess, restrict party houses and that sort of thing. So that is a proactive way to manage amenity issues.
Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in on something that was said there. You mentioned that the rangers can come out with regards to noise complaints. Yeah, I've had something occur recently whereby a resident was advised noise complaints don't fall within anything we can enforce. So how's that going to apply in this circumstance?
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I'll invite Mr. DeVekis to answer that question. Thank you.
I believe that our rangers are capable of coming out to any sort of call relating to disturbances, so they can still come and do a patrol. My understanding is, I know that relating to noise, there is a remit for the police to get involved as well. But it's not the compliance. The Compliance Department won't come out on a call from, let's say, a party that is operating in the middle of the night. The Compliance Department are not available at that time. So that's why I mentioned that it is not a proactive way of dealing with a noise complaint.
I think we might need to get some further clarity from community in place on, do rangers attend out-of-control parties, even if it is just to document it on behalf of compliance?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We do have rangers in the room in case anyone did want to get out of control. Rangers' role is to regulate against the local law, but I do have the Manager of Community Safety and Emergency Management if you'd like further clarification.
Would Ms Thrush like to come down and input what rangers do with parties?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the Rangers' role is not to control out-of-control parties. That is a police matter. The Rangers and our safety patrol officers, if it's after 9:30 at night, can conduct patrols and can pass the relevant information on to the police, who are the authority who then would take action.
Thank you. Councillor Bedworth, did you need to follow up on that, or you're fine?
That answers that question. I do have other questions, but I respect that Councillor Van Nguyen might have more.
I'm happy for you to continue for this moment. Councillor Van Nguyen can have a break.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will in that case then. Just bear with me. I'll get back to mine. I'm just interested in what it says in the policy regard clause 7 approval period. it states that all approvals will be for, excuse me, for a time limited to a 12-month period. Now, I'm aware in the report that it says financial implications are nil. However, how are admin ensuring that fees and charges applied to anyone who wants to get an approval are proportionate, cost reflective and equitable to both the residents or the landowners, sorry, the resident owners and the city, so that, and is this 12-month potential cost to any applicant, is it going to be every year? So how are we going to take care of it being fair and reflective on anyone who wants to continue this sort of business?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I'll invite Mr De Vecchis to respond to that question. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. There's no reduced fee associated with a secondary application for the 12-month period. The 12-month period is there to allow administration the ability to review the conduct of the operation over the last 12 months. However, the second application for the change of use or the extension of the use would allow the administration to extend the approval period either for a longer period of time or indefinitely, depending on how it's operating.
Councillor Bedworth, follow up.
Thank you for that. And through yourself, Deputy Mayor, just to be clear then, because I'm a bit thick, does that mean there will be a fee to homeowners, and will that be on an ongoing 12-month basis, or is it in a similar vein to the dog registration that it may be a one-off discretionary fee, which may then apply for the duration if it's a rolling approval process?
Mr De Vecchis.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So the Planning and Development Regulations 2009 sets out the schedule of fees that the Planning Department is beholden to. We don't have the ability to reduce those fees or change those fees because they're set by the state. So there is a second fee associated with the renewal application, but we don't have the ability to reduce or waive it. But as previously said, it can be extended further beyond 12 months on the second application.
One more, Mr Bedworth. Councillor Bedworth.
Either's good. Thank you for that, and thank you for the explanation. With that in mind then, would administration be either amenable or are already preparing a no-nonsense plain English guide because I struggle to get that from the report and the policy for anyone who may be looking to put an application in?
Mr Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, admin would be happy, we haven't to this point, but would be happy to prepare an info sheet to sort of explain to community members as well as potential short-term rental accommodation operators what the policy requires.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a follow-on question from what Councillor Bedworth raised in regards to Clause 7 around the approval period. Is an option to add a clause in to that approval that if the applicant did break the approval or just didn't follow any of the rules, that approval would cease? So I guess what I'm trying to get at is if we were to say give an approval for 5 years, but if they broke that, then that approval would cease from the city, which means then they are not allowed to essentially continue that use.
Mr De Vecchis.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. The city doesn't have the ability to revoke an approval. However, there could be stricter controls around enforcement through conditions. We don't have those controls in place. We don't have conditions that, I guess, reduce the ability for the operator to stop operating. We would have to come up with a pretty bespoke condition, but to date, that hasn't been an issue for the city. And probably just on that as well, this is, although the city is, I guess administration is putting forward this policy because of the position statement released by the state government, this is, I guess these sorts of uses are commonplace at the city, and we've been dealing with these sorts of uses for a number of years. The 12-month rolling period is something that we've been applying for a number of years also. We haven't ever had to actually not issue a planning approval at the end of the 12-month period, but it serves as a good milestone to determine if the amenity of the residents are being kept as in a good manner. So there isn't an ability for us to revoke an approval, in short.
Councillor Wright, follow up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I suppose just in saying that and taking into consideration around the multiple fees, is there an opportunity to establish a lifetime cost for an applicant, so similar like dog registration that that Councillor Bedworth mentioned, where basically within the span, I don't know, whatever the average human life is nowadays. But if you were to work that out over a lifetime cost, you know, let's say it was a $700 fee, however, you can put in as many requests on that property on a renewal basis, but that would cover their basically lifetime cost for any application fees related to short-term accommodation. So is that something that might be a bit more realistic as opposed to keep charging an annual fee? Because, you know, a resident might, you know, move out or etc., but it should cover the property itself. So I'm just trying to, I guess, reduce the burden and reduce the administration processing time for having to go through all that.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. It's certainly something that we can look at. I think where we're at with this policy, it is the first version, if you like, in response to the state government's position statement, and the position statement itself talks about the introduction of a 12-month time-limited approval. Certainly there's the opportunity for wording to be inserted into this version of the policy, or certainly as part of subsequent reviews, once we've had some time to use this policy and see how effective it is working, particularly around the 12-month time-limited approval. We could look to introduce almost like a scaling back of approval timeframes, as you sort of mentioned. So, you know, if it's you receive an initial 12-month approval, and if you can demonstrate that there's no issues in that 12 months and you choose to continue operating in that fashion, then it might be a 5-year and then an approval in perpetuity. I don't have the specifics there, but that's something that we could look at.
Furthermore, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just last one, Deputy Mayor. Has the planning team consulted with the economic development team? I'm just curious because this was the number one thing in our tourism plan to boost accommodation, and I'm just seeing some conflicts which, from my understanding, is supposed to be promoting responsible, you know, applications towards the city and formally registering it to boost accommodation within the city of Wanneroo. So I'm just hesitant that we're introducing, I understand about the legislation components, but the little extra bits which sort of fill in between legislation and what we want, I'm just seeing it as a potential barrier from what council has already adopted in its council plan and also in the tourism plan.
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, as part of the development of the policy and then also following the submissions received, we have engaged with our economic development advocacy team. So they have helped shape the policy, including the provisions. We certainly discussed the tourism strategy and approach that the city is trying to implement. And there is a level of comfort from within that team that the provisions that are set do achieve that balance between regulating from a planning point of view that we have a responsibility to do, while also still supporting our strategic intent around economic development and tourism and visitation.
Director Lee, could I ask then that for the report follow-up that you maybe get some sort of comment from the economic team included in the report? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Happy to.
Thank you. Councillor Berry, waiting patiently.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I understand a lot of this aligns to the STRA Act 2024, which I did take the liberty of looking at today. I've got a couple of questions. Do the provisions that you're proposing, are they retrospective, or is it only for new applications?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, it will only apply to new applications. We wouldn't be able to apply the standards retrospectively for anything that already has an approval.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you. And my next question really relates to, I guess, the one night, or the two minimum night stay. So if I just understood from what we heard, obviously Rangers have got no jurisdiction to go in and shut down parties. That's an issue for the police. So if there was a party in a minimum 2-night stay that was a Friday and Saturday night, and they partied on a Friday and Saturday night, by the time it gets to administration on a Monday morning, it's the same argument that you've got in the report, that you haven't got time to go and deal with it. So it says it would also reduce booking turnover, help to preserve amenity, the residential amenity, and give the city opportunity to investigate complaints and act as a deterrent to disruptive house parties. I don't understand how your minimum 2 nights would then work on a Friday and Saturday night if you've got house parties on either or both of those nights, because we haven't got the time to go and actually do anything. I'd only work Monday to Friday, so I'm just a bit confused why we'd restrict to minimum 2 nights. Thanks.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll ask Mr De Vecchis to respond to that one.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. So the wording in the report perhaps is not clear enough, but what that deterrent is referring to is a deterrent for single night house parties. So a lot of these short stay accommodations are used when it's a single night booking. They can book it a single night, use it as a party house and then leave. So a minimum 2-night stay is a deterrent for that.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just looking at the idea that this minimum 2-night stay would be a deterrent. Have you given any thought to the fact that party goers are pretty cunning? If they want to run a party, they're going to run it anyway, but they could book 2 nights and then they could do a bunk the following morning. Not only then does the fact that we can't follow up, but also those operators could actually land up losing their money, and certainly the next night booking, because they could have had that booked and now it's not booked. So I'm struggling to see any sense in this by actually saying that it's going to stop disruptive house parties. I just can't see it myself. Any thoughts to that?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the question. I don't think we'll be able to deter or prevent house parties from occurring entirely. The provision that's included in the policy is there to try and deter it. And whilst I appreciate that won't be able to be achieved in every circumstance, including the one that you've described, in preparing the policy, the city has tried to find a balance between providing a viable minimum night stay. 2 nights felt about right because it is a Friday and Saturday night, what you would typically see someone taking on short-term rental accommodation for, and also including a minimum threshold that people that would be looking to hire out a residence for a party and a party alone, that might be a threshold they're not willing to cross if they needed to commit to 2 nights of paying it, whether or not they were going to stay.
Follow up, Councillor Huntley. Microphone.
Under the recommendation, number 3, it notes the submission received as summarised in attachment 2 in respect to local planning policy 4.22. Unhosted short-term rental accommodation endorses administration's response to those submissions and advises submitters of the decisions. I can't see anything where we could, if we wanted to, vote against that provision 3A. So could we, on that recommendation, could we have that separated out so that that has a separate clause or recommendation?
I think with that one, Councillor Huntley, that would be decided at the ordinary council meeting where the council wants to separate it out.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether that might be advisable to do it prior to that, though.
Director Lead, any comment?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. As you mentioned, in my view, it looks like it could be separated out on the evening of the ordinary council meeting, but if there is a desire from the councillor to look at an alternate that would separate that out before it actually arrives on the evening, I'm happy to have that conversation with you offline.
Okay.
Councillor Rowe, you were waiting patiently.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Not unusually, I think my questions are on a very different track to everyone else's. Can the administration remind councillors of the example that we had fairly recently of Airbnb property, unhosted short-term rental, that received a number of complaints? An application came before council. It was refused because of lack of locational criteria in an unsuitable location, and that application wasn't taken before SAT. So the asking to be reminded of the history. And the second part of the question is, can the admin confirm that where appeals have been made to SAT on locational criteria, such as the City of Belmont, the SAT has enforced the decision of the local government to refuse unhosted short-term rental?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I'm aware of that application, but I don't have the details as it was dealt with before I arrived here. So I will ask Mr De Veckers to respond to that one. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, so the administration did present an application for short-term rental accommodation with a recommendation for refusal. The refusal was on multiple reasons. One of the reasons was it didn't fit within the locational criteria set by the draft position statement at the time, and it didn't fit the locational criteria. Well, I guess we also used a SAT case, a recent SAT case, and a determination by the SAT to I guess, reinforce the use of locational criteria at the time, but it had other issues, which included amenity issues like outdoor living areas being too close to other outdoor living areas and a variety of other issues. So the administration at the time used the guidance that was available to us, which was the draft position statement in the SAT case, to assess that development application, which was slightly different to how administration assessed development applications for short-term rental accommodations prior to that, prior to receiving the guidance from the state government for the position statement. And that was taken to council. Council chose to refuse the application and uphold the recommendation of administration. Since that decision, administration has had time and the ability to start preparing the draft local planning policy and consulting with our economic development team on the relevancy of locational criteria in the city of Wanneroo and whether that should be applied through a local planning policy. And through that investigation and those discussions, it's been determined that it's not an appropriate avenue at this stage for the local planning policy to include those locational criteria. In terms of the SAT case that you referenced, there is a SAT case. I can't remember the actual SAT case. I can't say that name, to be honest with you, but it was the City of Belmont and an applicant. However, the SAT case determined that locational criteria in that instance was enforceable. So it recognised locational criteria as a defensible planning tool to use in a local planning policy. However, what it doesn't stipulate is whether locational criteria has to be included in a local planning policy for administration's consideration or council's consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Rowe, follow up.
Two more if I can, Deputy Mayor, and please cut me off if you need to. I think the second part around how this is going to be enforced, which there's a myriad of issues, has already been asked and answered. So I'll go to the more hypothetical question, which is we're already receiving a significant number of complaints that go to ranges about vehicles overhanging footpaths and driveways in small 300 square metre blocks in newer estates. In an unhosted STRA, one would assume that you may be having multiple vehicles that will be potentially violating our local parking law. So my question is, how does administration intend to use its delegated authority when assessing these applications to ensure that it will be compliant with all of the other existing local laws that we have at the City of Wanneroo?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. The draft policy includes a provision around parking that it's provided in accordance with our district planning scheme. As it relates to residential areas, there's a requirement for one parking bay to be provided for every 2 guests. And so in the administration's application of its delegation, as part of any assessment, it would be understanding the number of guests proposed and ensuring that the parking ratio required by the policy can be satisfied. And in doing so, a parking bay is counted, if you like, if it's contained on site. And so in that respect, they're in theory to be compliant with their application and approval. There wouldn't be any overhanging of footpaths. However, I do know that non-compliance issues do happen, and that's a separate issue for the city to have to follow up. But certainly if an application could demonstrate it could accommodate its required parking on site, then it's something that the city would support. And then if it is shown to be parking not in accordance with their approval, then that's a compliance matter for us to deal with.
Follow up, Councillor Rowe.
Last question, Deputy Mayor. The administration recognises, the city does as well, that we have a role as local government to contribute to the supply of housing, which includes long-term rental housing. Every level of government is principally focused on delivering long-term rental housing in a housing crisis. Can the administration commit to provide a briefing note to councillors after a 6-month period, should this be successful, to document the number of applications that have been received and the impact on the availability of long-term rental? Because I would hate for the local government to be involved in contributing to an existing housing crisis.
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, we're happy to prepare a briefing note for elected members to report on the take-up of short-term rental accommodation, both hosted and unhosted, and we can provide that as a proportion to the number of dwellings in the city, and we should be able to do that suburb by suburb as well.
Patiently, Councillor Seith.
Very patiently. Thank you. Whilst I understand the need for this, can you confirm, am I right that we will be collecting this annual fee, if we go back to the annual fee, on behalf of the state government?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The fee that we'll be receiving would be a fee for the planning application that they would make. I believe there is a separate fee that a short-term rental accommodation operator is required to pay to the state government to register their property as a short-term rental accommodation property. But the fee we'd be collecting would be specifically for the planning application, in the same way that we collect a fee for someone that wants to build a house, add a patio to their house or something like that.
Councillor Seith.
Thank you. And who's keeping the registrar of both of those? I mean, obviously the one, the planning would be for us, and the other one?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The state government monitors the registrar of short-term rental accommodation operators.
Councillor Vindun.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I just got 4 or 5 questions. Just if you bear with me, if I could just go back to that 2-night stay condition. There's reference to prohibiting parties. Who comes up with that reasoning? Is that from some basis that we've got, or some studies or evidence?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The majority of provisions that the city's included in its policy reflect the suggested provisions from the WAPC position statement, and that one is one of those. So we've extracted that from the position statement.
Councillor Vindern.
Have you ever seen a homeowner advertise on Airbnb the best party house? Please book this place. Because I've never seen it personally. Most of them have rules to say no party.
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. No, I've not seen that either.
Councillor Noon.
So in terms of enforcement, assume the homeowner has the best policy accepted by the city, and the person stay there, broke all the rules, management plan. How do we enforce that? Do we penalise the homeowner? And what are the penalties?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you. In terms of enforcement compliance action that the city would take, if it were to take it, it would rest with the homeowner rather than the partygoer. In terms of the actual penalties, there is a fairly broad range of tools, if you like, that the city has at its disposal when it comes to enforcing compliance to planning approvals. It can be a fairly light touch in terms of bringing it to the attention of the operator or the homeowner, reminding them their obligations, and that is all that's required at times to achieve compliance again, and then it can head into a more forceful level of compliance where the city may prosecute the homeowner.
Councillor Vindern.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just regarding the management plan, and that's included in the management plan, the complaints management, is that something that's available for access by the neighbours, or at what stage do they disclose that to the others living in the area?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, as part of finalising the management plan, it would be a requirement to circulate that to adjoining landowners so they're aware of what obligations the short-term rental accommodation operator has imposed on them.
One last question.
Councillor Vindern, your last.
Yes, thank you. Have you ever rejected a management plan?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Having only been here for a very short time, I've not been involved with a short-term rental accommodation application here, but I'll certainly invite Mr De Vecchis, if he has any experience, to respond.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. In short, yes. Through the development application process, the assessing officers regularly request further information, updated management plans, and tighten the provisions to make sure that the management plans meet the city standards, and that would include a complaints management procedure.
Thank you. Just before we close this item, Director Lee, my final question for it would be is, if those management plans are public, can they not be published on our website?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I'll have to take that question on notice. There's probably a few things I want to explore in terms of practicalities and also legalities in terms of sharing that information.
Councillor Berry, final.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I've just been looking at stays and Airbnb, and they've already got rules. And Airbnb says has a strict permanent global ban on parties and events in all listed properties, including a maximum occupancy rule and a ban on party houses. Disruptive gatherings, excessive noise and unauthorised parties are prohibited, with violations risking immediate eviction or account suspension. So as I understand it, when you book an Airbnb, a lot of the time, the people that are taking the booking will look at your prior history to make sure you've got no issues. The same with stays. Do we think we need to do so many regulations when we've already, a lot of people already operate quite effectively and efficiently and have done for a number of years? And I don't know if we need to be putting a complete another layer on what the services are offered by Airbnb and stays already do, and it's already legislated that everybody who operates a temporary accommodation has to register under the Act with state government and it be on their register as well and pay their fee. Thank you.
And your question?
Has Captain been aware that stays and Airbnb have all these rules already?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I suppose it is admirable and encouraged that the platforms do set their own regulations. Certainly the history to where we're now with a local planning policy and even the changes to short-term rental accommodation comes from a time where there was very little regulation, including by the platform operators themselves. Whilst they do have those in place, and while they are a popular spot for people to book their accommodation, they're not the only spot, and they're also subject to change outside of the city's control. The reason we have a local planning policy is because we're required or obligated to undertake land use planning and respond to applications under our scheme. In order for us to assess those and make good decisions, we do need a policy framework to at least guide us, and they're the reasons why we have the provisions in place. So whilst there are other standards and legislation in place, we still require our own as well.
Follow-up, Councillor Berry?
It's not a follow-up, it's a further question. It's my last question. We've already covered the people who are already operating are not going to come under these rules. They're obviously not going to have to abide by them. What about the people that have got applications in right now that may or may not be have decided by the time we vote on this? Will it be applied to them, or because their application's currently in front of you, will it apply after? Thank you.
Director Lee?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I might just provide a short answer and then ask Mr De Vecchis to contribute more. In terms of what I can say, the policy becomes operative after Council's endorsement of it, if Council is of a mind, and then under the regulations once it's published. So there is an opportunity for the city to control its destiny a little bit in terms of when the policy becomes operative. But I'll ask Mr De Vecchis to respond to what consideration we've given to a transition for live applications.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So administration currently uses the draft position statement to guide its decision-making process when assessing these sorts of applications. This gives consideration to Clause 67, I believe, matters to be considered by a local government when considering development applications. Largely, the provisions that are reflected in this draft local planning policy are the provisions we effectively apply when assessing development applications for short-term rental accommodation at the moment. So any live applications would essentially have the same rule run over them as what you see in front of you.
Councillor Vindern.
I just want to foreshadow an amendment to the item by removing that particular 2-night minimum stay. Thank you.
I think that was it, councillors, for this item. Just finally, I will ask the final question before we ask the Mayor to come in. Oh, I know. My final question is, with all that said, and if we do have a compliance issue, bearing in mind what Councillor Berry said, that all these platforms do have rules and regs, do we report any of those, or can we from now on report those, whether it be through Rangers or through compliance, to say we had a report from this instance and we've done our job?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I'm happy to take that question on notice and explore the opportunity. I would suggest if we are able to, it would probably go through the registration body at the state government to report to them. Yep.
Thank you. We'll call the Mayor back in.
We now go to Community in Place. Ms Davis, are there any items you'd like to speak to this evening?
Good evening, Mayor Aitken and elected members. There are 2 items on the main agenda from Community in Place this evening, and we consider both items to be taken as read and available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on item 4.6, tender number 25152, the provision of CCTV maintenance and management? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question, probably to maybe the CEO, but obviously the Director Davies. CCTV maintenance and the network is a fairly substantial piece of work. I understand that. But I'm just wondering whether it should actually be with our IT services area, bearing in mind we are growing that at a fast pace, and whether or not they would be able to maintain it and manage it instead of an external company.
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the question. If it's okay, we'll probably take that one on notice. It's obviously a very specialised field, so I'd need to ask some questions of the staff to see whether they had the capacity. I'd suggest the very reason or that we went out and called for tender was because we lack those specialist skills internally, but I'll confirm that and include some provision within the report when it comes in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one from me. With the tender that was submitted, is there provision in there for 24 hours a day surveillance? Was that the reason why we went externally? Was there an added benefit to it as opposed to the city doing it in-house? Just curious.
Ms Davis?
Thank you for your question. I will hand that over to the Manager of Community Safety Emergency Management. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms Thrush.
Through you, Mayor, this contract is not for the watching of the CCTV. It does not include that. It is for the maintenance, so the repair of the cameras and the systems, and the management to make sure that, for example, that everything is patched with the latest security patches, etc. So it's not for that watching of CCTV.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, councillors? If there are no questions on this item, we now go to item 4.7, appointment of non-voting members to the Bushfire Advisory Committee. Do I have any questions on this item? If there are no questions on this item, we go to corporate strategy and performance. Sue Potter. Thank you, Ms Potter. Are there any items you wish to speak to on the corporate strategy and performance section of the agenda this evening? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 finance reports and 2 relating to property services, and we will take them as read. I will ask our Chief Financial Officer, Mr Pathrulasta, to introduce the mid-year review report, and we will welcome any questions.
Thank you. If you could go ahead, Mr Pathrulasta. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So mid-year review position this time around is slightly different to what we used to have. We are having 4.9 million deficit position as compared to what we used to have, probably a surplus position historically. I'd like to draw your attention to a few things here. We have adopted a 3.5% rate increase for this financial year, which is lower than the current CPI. CPI is running around 4.5%. This has cost pressure on the city. And also we are in the process of delivering the largest capital works program for the city, which is being 145 million capital works program, and which is well underway. And also council plan activities are also progressing, which was supported by revised recruitment strategy, and also materials and contracts spending. Further, we have had some unforeseen circumstances or events like interest rates and the portfolio for the investment, so which had adverse impact on our position in revenue point of view. Also, we had to note that 4.9 million is about 1.75% of our total expenditure profile, which is being 280 million. So in overall basis, given we have had healthy reserve positions and we have been replenishing our reserves historically quite well, so we can absorb this 4.9 million deficit this time around. However, administration working on to deliver more balanced position at the end of the financial year by looking at various cost control measures. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have any questions to item 410? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with the statement that historical replenishment has put us in the position to be able to afford this situation. Mayor, my first question is just to get confirmation on the record that the net adverse impact on operating activities is $12.4 million and that the overall size of the deficit is 4.9 million, and to ask through yourself, Mayor, how this compares historically with the past 5 years.
Thank you. Could you please respond, Mr. Patsama?
Through you, Mayor, I don't have that information in front of me now, so I can take it on notice and come back to you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Councillor Berry and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few. So if I turn to page 309 and we're looking at the rates, to clarify, does this mean that we've built less properties than expected to be getting a slightly lower forecast of residential rates?
Would you like to respond?
Through you, Mayor, yes. We have forecasted a certain amount of interim rates. However, we are experiencing a slightly lower position, so that's correct.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you. Can administration confirm, or the CEO confirm, that the 3.5% increase that we adopted was based on the admin's projections and recommendation last year, and we weren't to know the true financial position we were in? Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Berry. Yes, it was the administration's recommendation for a 3.5% rate increase this year. Councillors, I just want to briefly talk about the mid-year budget review and what it is and the reason that we do a mid-year review. We obviously go through our financial position in a fair bit of detail. The Chief Financial Officer met with the executive team and said we're basically completing our program to a very high percentage. Capital program's on track. Operating program is tracking a little bit over, which, yes, is different to previous years, but when you complete most of your capital program and you complete most of your operating program, you're essentially running razor-thin margins. The discussion that we had as an executive team is that the forecast position to the end of financial year at this point of time is a slight deficit. We will be doing everything within our power and control to bring it back to a balanced budget, and that's why you do a mid-year review. We've already had those discussions amongst the executive team. We've had those discussions amongst the managers, and it really comes to a situation where we've encouraged everyone to use your discretion wisely. So we'll be working very hard. The CFO will be meeting with us every month as we come into land on June 30. I'm certainly not alarmed at this point in time. As I said, we are completing all of our capital program. We're completing all of our operating program, looking to run razor-thin margins, and we are still aiming for a balanced position at the end of the year, and this is where we are mid-year.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll go to Councillor Berry for another question, and then I'll go to Councillor Wright. No, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Miles, then to Councillor Wright, then back to Councillor Rowe. Councillor Berry, one more question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's great that administration have got to go through the details, and it's a pity that hasn't gone through with councillors so we understand it a bit better. I've got several more questions, but obviously you're going to interrupt me, so I'd just like to know on page 310, we've got an increase in the refuge removal expenses of 878k. I'm trying to understand the different figures throughout this report relating to waste. Is this due to fly tipping? Is it due to increased usage of bulk collection? There's not enough in here for me to be able to understand what's behind all these figures that have been thrown at us in a report. Thank you.
Bimsara, or should we go to Mr Singh? Mr Singh?
Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice. I don't have the full detail with me, but I'll be happy to provide that information.
Thank you. Bimsara, would you like to comment on that or leave it to Mr Singh to provide the data later?
Through me, I'll leave it, take it on notice and come back to you.
Okay, the agenda briefing is questions. Do you want a question on that item or, okay, added to the list? Okay, Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, just on that page, we're referring to 309. I understand most of the charges. The only one that I do want to question is obviously the interest earnings. We've never gone backwards on interest earnings to date. So did we change any of our policy to reflect the change of interest, bearing in mind we're now getting increases in deposits through the RBA?
Bimsara?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. It's contributing mainly two factors. One is lower than we expected interest rate, which is obviously we had 2 interest rate cuts. Another thing was higher than usual burn rate, meaning we spend, because we have a larger capital works program and also large operating program compared to prior years. So our burn rate has been high, so the cash available for investment was lower than what we thought.
Thank you. Councillor Wright? Oh, sorry, you have a second question, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on that then, Mr Bimsara, is because obviously we're ahead of the game on our capital works, there shouldn't be any much more drawdown on capital going forward for the rest of the financial year. Is that my understanding? And so therefore, it should then balance out over the next 6 months?
Bimsara?
Through you, Mayor. So we have budgeted our cash profile, which is available for investment on each month basis. So for the first 6 months, we have burned higher rate. However, we will still be spending for the rest of the 6 months. So in this mid-year review, we have considered how much we would be spending for the rest of the financial year as well. So consider the first six months as well as balance remaining 6 months as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got one question on this item, and it was going back to what the CEO responded to, I can't remember the councillor off the top of my head. You mentioned executive were consulted, managers were consulted, council wasn't consulted, and that's a concern for me. So why wasn't a mid-year budget workshop arranged, which I know was discussed at a budget workshop last year and was also discussed through Walga training, which took place less than 3 weeks ago? That council also had appetite to move down that direction, considering pretty much most local governments have a mid-year budget review with councillors through a concept forum of some sorts. So I know historically it's been that way at the City of Wanneroo, but I'm pretty sure I understand that recollection that it was one of those decisions that was pretty much, discussions, that was unanimous around the table, that we had the appetite that we wanted to be able to explore and understand mid-year budget reviews and the impacts that has on our budget.
Mr CEO.
Thank you for your feedback, Councillor Wright. I can't recall the exact discussion, so I apologise that I can't recall that. The timeframes between the mid-year budget review process, the agenda finalisation and the report that's presented to you tonight. So I think this report was presented as part of the agenda, was it last Wednesday? I think it was. We finalised the agenda, I think it was on Monday. It was finalised, so the timeframes are incredibly tight. If that's something that Council wants to entertain in future years, we'll probably need to push the mid-year budget review out to the end of March, which is the statutory timeframe. But then if there is changes that you need to make, you struggle a bit more to respond. So we can certainly go back and have a look at those timeframes if Council does have an appetite to do that. If that has been requested, I apologise that hasn't been convened on this occasion.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to refresh memories, I believe it also came up in the November Ordinary Council meeting last year as several items put before us, including a request by Councillor Wright to look at the Wanneroo Youth Hub, were discussed in the context of adding or considering matters in the long-term financial plan and the mid-year review, and that's where this discussion surfaced in public domain. Mayor, I have several more questions, but feel free to cut me off when necessary. It's been mentioned a couple of times that we're delivering a large percentage of our capital program, and that's been presented to elected members. Can I just confirm with the administration that my understanding of the figure is correct, that we're looking through this mid-year review to reduce the capital budget for this year by 10%, roughly? Is it $14 million or $12 million? I'm trying to get the figure in front of me. Is that correct?
Mr. Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's correct. The 10% reduction is based on the revised budget. The adopted budget was, I think, 137, 138 million. But with the changes over the last 6 months, it went up to 145. But with this mid-year review, it's being proposed to be reduced by 10%.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Councillor Rowe?
I do. Is it a mathematical fact then that if you reduce the amount of work that needs to be produced, you're automatically going to be producing a higher amount? It's like if you lower the actual amount that is in the capital program, the percentage that we can achieve will be higher. Is that correct?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe, for that question. Director Singh and I have had that conversation, and the percentage completion rate, the requirement of 90, is back what you adopt at the beginning of July. So yes, they get ratcheted up and down, but what we hold ourselves accountable for is when the budget was adopted.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to look into, particularly on page 310 of the agenda, proper employee costs of an additional $3 million, and we'll get to a bit later how activity statements have been gradually showing an increase in this particular field. The administration's provided some information there as to temporary personnel, salaries and wages. Can I ask the administration how many additional new leave entitlements have been granted under the EBA that was authorised by Chief Executive Office last year? That's my first question. And is there a quantifiable impact that you can suggest this has had on our salaries and employee costs?
Bimsara?
Through Mayor, I don't have that information in front of me now, but I am happy to provide the quantification and with the help of people and culture to answer that question on notice.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Just a final question, Mayor, more of a statement of fact. Can I confirm that it was not council that endorsed that enterprise bargaining agreement? And can I also confirm that there is an enterprise bargaining agreement for a separate section of staff that will be undertaken in the next 12 months?
Mr CEO.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rowe. Yes, the Chief Executive Officer handles staff matters, including enterprise agreements. We currently have either 3 or 4 enterprise agreements. They're basically on rotation. We are seeking to consolidate, so almost every year you'll be dealing with a renewal.
Thank you. I'm just looking at my list here. I now go to Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you, Mayor. And through yourself, just following on from that slightly then, with the reduction in the budget and the deficit that we've got in front of us, what governance safeguards are in place to ensure that any community facilities or groups that have been had any promised funding deferred from this financial year, pending, shall we say, tender processes on their part, are not going to be unintentionally deprioritised or crowded out in future budget cycles?
Mr CEO.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bedworth. Through the mid-year budget review, there has been no discussion whatsoever in terms of reducing levels of service or deferring projects in terms of not completing them at all. Projects are ready at different times and can be pushed out and deferred due to deliverability. But if the administration was planning to reduce levels of service or reduce a community program or whatever the case may be, you would be well and truly aware of that. As we come into the end of year, the type of areas we look to save money is where we have discretion. So, you get to the end of the year and you have a few dollars left in a budget account, and rather than going out and saying, well, I'm going to do a bit extra, that's where you keep the money in your pocket. You make sure that you try and claw back some of that deficit. Again, I think BIMSARA did mention that, the percentage rate of our total expenditure profile. In terms of operating a business of this size, it's not an amount that either myself or the executive team are concerned about at all. And as I said, every month we catch up with the CFO, we'll be tracking that carefully. Some of the concerns regarding employee costs, believe it or not, are a good story. We go into each budget period and we try to forecast what the vacancy rate is going to be. We forecasted that this year based on historical data, and the long and short of it is we have less vacancies, so your salaries and wages are going to be a little bit higher. So although that is a direct cost, you don't suffer some of those indirect costs such as high turnover, large gaps in between where people start, loss of knowledge, so on and so forth. So we're just going to have to keep a really close eye on it coming to end of financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got about 4 follow-up questions. Can the CEO confirm if he will now be trying to align all the EBAs so they're all on the same terms, which would increase our employee costs further? Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
I don't quite understand your question there. But the enterprise agreements that we negotiated for almost entirely separate work groups. So the similarities between the two, they have different conditions, they have different requirements in each one. So we're not seeking to have a single enterprise agreement across the whole city. They're negotiated at different times. They're always peer reviewed, in accordance with what other local governments are doing, trying to maintain some sort of competitive position in the market. So we're not seeking a standard enterprise agreement across the whole city. We are looking to consolidate down from 4 to a number, so we're not in this constant state of renewal, but not seeking for a unified agreement across all staff.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you. And can you confirm a little bit more about the employee costs? I'm going to refer to page 316, where it says the increase in employee costs is largely due to the lower actual vacancy than budget, which reflects a healthier and more stable level of resourcing across the city, enabling delivery of the services at expected levels. I'm not quite sure if I'm reading that right, but does that mean that if you are predicting a vacancy rate, as you mentioned earlier, that is higher than what we've actually got now, we have no chance of actually delivering our services at expected levels. Thank you.
Mr CEO.
I'm sorry, Councillor Berry, can you please repeat that question? I didn't quite understand it. And if I don't get it a second time, I'll have to take it on notice and we might have to go offline to discuss it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the statement, can I read it as, if we had the lower vacancy levels that you expected, we would not have been able to deliver the services at the expected levels? Because it reads that the increase in employee costs is largely due to a lower actual vacancy than budget, which reflects a healthier and more stable level of resourcing across the city, enabling delivery of the city services at expected levels. So is that statement also true? If we hadn't got lower vacancy rates, we would not be delivering the services at expected levels because we wouldn't have enough staff to do so?
Mr CEO.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Berry, for explaining that again. Look, I think it's a long... I can't answer that across the whole city, but what I can say is the teams that over the last couple of years have been under an extraordinary amount of pressure to do a lot of work because they had higher vacancy rates, and Bimsara's team's one of those in finance. People and Culture is another team that's really battled from a vacancy perspective. Staff have been really pushed to try and deliver, and they've done a remarkable job. Now that we have more people in those positions, I think the workload is more consistent across the business than maybe what it's been in some of those teams. So I think it's a long bow to draw to say that we weren't delivering the required services. I think now just the workload is more evenly distributed and there's less requirements for overtime and those sorts of things.
Okay, thanks, but the report doesn't quite read like you just explained it, but that's okay. I'd like to flag an amendment for next week. It's in relation to recommendation 2. It's for the Queen's Rock Sports and Social Club. And the basis of that amendment will basically be not to push it back into next year, but leave it in this year, because right now the club are facing the possibility of losing their state government funding if we do not assist them. And it was agreed, obviously, earlier that we would try and help them. Thank you.
Mr CEO.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Berry, and I really appreciate you making that phone call today as well to give me the heads up. We've subsequently been in contact with the sports club, so we may have some updated information that can either help you with that amendment or you may decide not to move the amendment on the night, but it's entirely up to you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Seif.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate the comprehensive report on all the projects. I do like to also have more granular information on the revenues. So which line item does Catalina Regional Council come under?
Bimsara.
Through you, Mayor. It's coming under proceeds from disposal of assets, which is on page 320, under investing activities, under inflows, third row from the top.
Thank you. Councillor Seif.
Thank you. I did think it was there. But is there anything else in there, or is that only Catalina Regional?
Bimsara.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, there may be some other minor disposal of assets are also there.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, Councillor? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I noticed that on one of the projects it said the tender for the new renewal of the customer request management system has been delayed. Are we able to get a little bit more information about that one? Thanks.
Mr CEO.
We are preparing, Councillor Smith, we are preparing a briefing note for elected members on that, so that will be circulated in the next week or so.
Thank you. Councillor Figg.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got 3 questions. The first leads to the second, so it'll make sense after a while. But on page 312 at the top, it's just talking about significant entries contributing toward the net adjustment with regards to development contribution plans. The top dot point talks about the Yanchep-Turox Coastal Corridor community facilities being 3.2 million in total. And I'm just hoping to clarify whether that is new funds that have flowed into the DCP or whether that is funds returned for the coastal node facilities because they haven't yet started construction.
Mr Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, excuse me. Thank you for the question, Councillor Figg. I will need to take it on notice and just clarify for you, but happy to do so.
Councillor Figg.
Thank you, Mayor. The second one is just with the report, which actually it has a fair bit of detail, so thank you all for that. But just with regards to how it's been noted across the operating activities section from 309 through to 312, or just prior to that, in the bracketed parts, so on 311, for example, has insurance plus 89K. I understand it now because I've read through it all, but it's just a bit confusing having it as a plus when it's to do with the position. I understand that it's supposed to say this is adding to the deficit, but maybe for future ones, if we could have it say this is taking away from our operating balance rather than having a plus to increase the deficit. Does that make sense? It's okay?
Bimsara?
Yeah, through your Mayor, yes, we can consider that going forward.
Councillor Figg.
Cool. And the last one, and I promise is the only one where I'll go into the granular detail, but PR 4365 on page 329, it's the Brazier Road service upgrades. And it just speaks to a $650,000 increase due to Watercorp and ATCO costs. I'm wondering if this is, and it's because it escapes my memory, was this an amount that was included within the tender costs that came to us, or is this additional to the tender that we had last year?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. It was not in the contract cost. It's over and above the utility costs. Sorry, Mayor, through you. It's part of the project cost. It was meant to be in next financial year, but given the works are happening, that has to be spent this financial year. So bringing forward the funds.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions. On page 315, it mentions $2.9 million is transferred from the Waste Management Reserve to cover the deficit of waste service operations. Is that separate to what's covered under the waste fee, or was the waste fee not enough to cover operations?
Bimsara.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the waste fee was not enough to cover full operating activities, which is also mentioned in our revenue profile on page 309 under fees and charges. The first dot point is describing that our waste fee income is under. So that's, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. My last question is just about the animal registration fee income on page 309. It was a decrease, I guess, in forecasted by about $45,000, which I just wondered if that was quite a high percentage in terms of what they might have expected. So I'm guessing what percent decrease is that, and is there any particular reason why that's been understood? Thanks.
Bimsara.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know right now what the percentage would be. I can take it on notice and get back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll refer to page 332 of our agenda proper. In particular, the following items. Renewal of customer request management system, renewal of property and rating system, upgrade enterprise project management system, and on the following page, renewal of facility booking system. All 4 have been deferred to the following budget year. If the administration is going to provide us with some further information in 2 weeks' time, can I ask the administration to share with us if the deferral of those particular projects for a further 6 to 12 months will have any operational impacts on the business, the functionality of those systems, and how the administration intends to manage the risks, noting that it will be in-house users being employees, but also customers and elected members who will be using those particular systems.
Mr CEO.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rowe. Yes, there will be updates as part of that briefing note on all of those questions you just asked.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe.
Last question, Mayor. Page 333, waste management upgrade vehicle safety equipment has been rebudgeted due to resourcing issues. Can the administration also provide in writing in 2 weeks' time that the deferral of upgrades to vehicle safety will not present any safety risks to the employees who use those vehicles?
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We can provide a separate update on that one.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to refer back to Councillor Smith's question with regard to the animal fees. We've got more residents moving into the city of Wanneroo and with them more pets, so that one confuses me. But I'm also very confused where we've established that we are building more, we've had less properties bringing in less rates than we expected, but we are doing an increase in crossover reimbursement expenses of 60k. I'm a bit confused by that. But more, there seems to be a lot of questions. The CEO has just informed us that all this has to be done by the end of March. Is there an opportunity, therefore, to push this into March and actually have a workshop so we can all have our questions answered and we will understand it a little bit better so we're comfortable to approve it? Thank you.
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Happy for somebody else to take the detailed question around crossovers, but generally that's a timing issue. Crossovers generally happen right at the end of a construction project, so I don't think there's anything significant there, mainly just timing. In terms of the statutory period, I'm looking at BIMSARA here, I'm pretty sure it's the end of March is the statutory timeframe that the mid-year review is to be done by, is that correct? Yes, it is. The only problems that you could potentially run into is some project delays. As you will see during the mid-year budget review, there are some funds that need to be reallocated across programs for changes in projects across the year. So there probably is an opportunity for us to add some comments in the report about what the implications could be of that. But if it was deferred to March, taking into consideration you may have some program delivery issues, we would still meet the statutory timeframe.
Thank you, Councillor Berry.
Is there an opportunity to discuss it next Tuesday when we're all together instead, so there isn't a delay and you can still get it approved in February, if that's what administration prefers, so they don't have delays on projects? Thank you.
Quite a big program, but we can certainly sit down as an administration to see whether there's any flexibility there, or is there anything that potentially could be deferred. But off the top of my head, I can't recall what was on that briefing, so maybe you could just leave that one with us.
I have a question. Just quickly, we've incorporated bill smoothing this year, which means that people can pay their bills in 4 instalments without any deficit or increased charge. Has the use of bill smoothing meant that we haven't got as much money in the beginning of the financial year as what we would normally do? Because I don't think the 4th instalment has come through to the city yet. We've only received 3 instalments, and because this is to the 30th of December, everyone that's bill smoothing in that fashion would have only paid 2 instalments, which is 50% in their rates, and they might have been tempted to pay a little bit more if they were paying less if they weren't given the advantage of bill smoothing. Has the introduction of bill smoothing affected the timing of the receiving of our rates from our residents? Thank you, BIMSARA.
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. Yes, it has, meaning especially probably because we are not charging interest on our installment options. So we have noticed additional take-up on installment notice compared to prior years. So that means the money we would have received upfront, now we are receiving delayed manner through installment options as well. So that has also contributed towards a lower cash profile for investments.
Also, Bimsara, would that also mean because there's less cash there, there's less in investment for this period of time, which means there would be less interest return because there's not as much money there in cash to be able to put in short-term interest for that? Would that be different as well, Bimsara?
Yes, yes, Mayor, true.
When we look at, I mean, I'm not suggesting we stop the bill smoothing, but can we have a look when there is time, because I know time is the essence and resources, but can we have a look and compare the difference in our cash flow from prior to bill smoothing to when we do bill smoothing, so that we have that in mind? Because when we get the fourth instalment, that of course will help us with our cash flow and help us with our end-of-year review, but it is affecting, I believe, our mid-year review with our cash flow, and so that we can compare that and incorporate that in our financial statements so that we understand that there might be a little bit of difference in how we're tracking because of this. Would that be possible, Bimsara?
Yes, Mayor. We can compare this year cash coming in compared to a prior year and then compare that and come back to you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, I go to item 4.8, the financial activity statement for the period ended 30th of November 2025. Are there any questions on that item? If there are no questions on that item, I go to item 4.9, financial activity statement for the period ended 31st of December 2025. If there are no questions on that number, I go to item 4.11, warrant of payments for the period to the 31st of December 2025. If there are no questions on that item, I go to item 4.12. Warrant of payments for the period to the 30th of November 2025. I now go to item 4.13, which is the proposed new lease and surrender of prior lease to the Yanship Sports and Social Club over Lot 1, 81 Yanship Beach Road, Yansham. Mr Greer, did you want to speak to this at all? Do I have any questions on this item? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Figg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine is reasonably brief. I'm just wondering, has there been any movement from administration's point of view on when the Sports and Social Club might face a move to a different location?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. It is a live topic from time to time with the club, understandably. It was something that has been discussed in the context of the recent lease negotiations. Essentially, it's not in the short to medium term. The report provides some further detail on it, but the land assembly and the further planning that would occur for instance, something like the Yanship Regional Open Space, which would be a logical location for a club in the long term. It would give the opportunity to plan a site. None of that has occurred at a state level, and that would really be an important step before anything more detailed could occur.
Any other questions? Councillor Miles? Deputy Mayor Miles?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Just, Mr Greer, on a couple of these points, because they are being raised by other sports clubs as well. On page 543, with some of the general items, I noticed we're charging a maintenance fee of $4,300 to cover per annum as per the review in April 25. but we're also requesting the building insurance, other insurances, including contents, public liability, plate, glass and the like. And it says maintenance and cleaning the premises, structural maintenance and statutory compliance, all of those items to be covered by the lessor. Yeah, we're charging $4,300 for a maintenance fee. What is that going to cover?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the question. The maintenance fee arises out of the city's leasing policy that has been approved by council a number of times over the years since it was first adopted in about, I think it was 2015, where it first was introduced. Essentially, it's primarily for schedulised maintenance, compliance time maintenance, HVAC, fire systems, those sorts of things. It's informed by our building maintenance team as part of the lease negotiations, and it's a fee that's adopted and is in a lot of our community and sporting leases. The other charges you mentioned, as you pointed out, structural maintenance and the sort of that side of things, as part of the long-term asset management of the building, the city tends to cover that. That's not unusual for this site. And there is some information in the report around some of that longer-term capital investment the city has done in the site, albeit there'll probably be more in the coming years. And the final part around the insurance, typically a tenant would always be responsible for its, I suppose the insurance is linked to its operations. So public liability, workers' compensation, plate glass, a lot of those type of things. Building insurance is often the discussion point. In a lot of the city's tenancies, the city holds the building insurance policy as part of a larger group of policies, and then recovers an allocated portion for each tenanted site. I think that the history with this club has been it's held its own insurance. That's the current point in the negotiations. But if the club was to approach us and say they wanted to move to come under a city policy and then reimburse, their allocation of the cost, that would just be a discussion point at the time.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just concerned, I think, for some of the building maintenance. Obviously, this building is more than 50 years old. And I'm hoping that we're going to do a little bit more than the HVAC and what have you, because we're not going to relocate them in 10 years, because this lease is for 10 years plus some extra time. When that was my ward back in 2007, the then administration said, we can't do much because we're moving them. And here we are, that we're having to give them a 10-year lease to try and get them to stay there a bit longer. I'm just concerned that we're not bringing the building either up to code or we're not planning on to replace it in a timely fashion. So I understand this is a lease, but it would be nice to understand administration's view that should council adopt the practice of we're keeping them there and then we do some upgrades, or whether that be new building or whatever, because right now, like some of our other buildings in the south, it's starting to look a bit of a shambles, especially on a new area that's getting a lot of new buildings for the public to go to. Do you not agree?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question. It's, I think, really an outcome of that uncertainty. What we've tried to do, rather than approach this and say, well, typically we would give a community or sporting group another 5 or maybe another 10 years from now, if the old lease had been expiring. What we've tried to do as a property team is to engage with the club and look more realistically around what the real timeline is going to be. So they're ending up with 15 years. That then allows both the club to seek funding for things that would have a life cycle that's longer, and also the city to look more long-term, not
long-term to the extent of decades, but certainly long-term the extent of things that would have a 10 to 15-year life cycle in improvements. So it just gives us that more openness to engage between both of us. And I guess speaking for the negotiations with the club over the last year, that's been reflected. I think there's been a lot more open testing of what they're seeking to achieve and what we can probably accommodate. And this new lease, hopefully if supported by council, will give us that next step to move into looking at the improvements that they might need.
Thank you. I'll give Deputy Mayor Miles another question, then go to council.
Just a final one. I think that's what council is struggling a little bit with in our wards, south wards and what have you, and also the north wards. These old facilities are really tired. It doesn't appear that we're, because we've leased them out to a group, we've said bar lease, we're not going to do any more, but a little bit of tinkering here and there. So I guess, can I ask, because it all comes under your team, can I ask maybe an update in the report, what it generally is the plan, which it goes on to what Councillor Fick was asking, for this particular facility, because I think we need to understand as a council, in year 8, in the LTF, we've got a new building coming. Because that community group, like others, is not going to get $20 million from anybody to do a rebuild. That's going to be the council responsibility. And I think we need to be realistic and do that. So would you agree that we could get some firmer timelines engaged in this on what we can do for our residents and our community building and assets?
Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. We can certainly add some more commentary around there being opportunities for councillors through the long-term financial plan process to put proposals forward for administration also to consider that. It probably won't be a knockdown and a rebuild in year 8, because that would be at a stage where you would hope the planning of, say, a future site would be well underway. So that probably wouldn't be a prudent use of the city's resources. But you'd be looking more in terms of the sort of mid-scale, like, more detailed renovations or extensions that would have an interim lifespan. And that would hopefully this longer lease would also give the club the opportunity to seek that external funding. The feedback they've given us in these negotiations has been that the shorter term was a constraint on them. Now, if we're talking 15 years, well, most clubs have 15 years whether they're being relocated or not. So it should give them the ability to go out and engage with, state and other funding bodies that will hopefully be more receptive to their needs.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, because obviously Quinns Rocks has also come up on the mid-year budget review around toilet compliance. Wanneroo Sports and Social Club have also expressed that their facilities have mould, balconies are starting to decay, and obviously Yanship, again, building looking tired. I just want some clarity around council's adopted new service levels for building facilities and building intervention levels to be at a 7 and 8, I think it was, that we ended up going to. Do these 3 facilities actually meet that 7 to 8 requirement? And if not, have we looked at putting together I don't want to call it a rescue package, but we've looked after men's sheds, we've looked after other groups. These 3 facilities have not had any substantial investment by the City of Wanneroo for some time. So I think if we're going to be looking holistically at these sports and social clubs, they've got a large amount of members. I think Wanneroo is about 1,200. Quinns, I think, is about 1,100 or maybe a bit more. And Yanship, I don't think, is that far behind. So I'm just curious if they are our buildings and we, let's just say the sports and social clubs folded up at some stage, which I'm sure none of them will. But essentially that's our building to look after. So if they're not up to scratch or they're not meeting our service level requirements, I don't think any of these buildings are even in our LTFP for even a renewal or a refurbish. So I'm just curious if they've met that threshold to be triggered.
Mr. Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. With the building asset renewal programs, there are different components of the building get renewed at different times, depending upon what they are. They have different lifespans. So we have done some investments, and I think Quinn's had some work done in the last few years. Wanneroo Sports Social Club also had some work. I don't have the full details, but I can gather that information. And as part of our asset renewal program, we continuously look at different components of different buildings when they are due for renewal. Some cases it could be roof renewal in 1 year, mechanical HVAC another year, carpet replacements and things like that. So all those different components get replaced at different times. But we're happy to have a look, all three.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose just a supplementary, could some information be provided in the OCM report around the building condition results? What's the final number that these 3 buildings actually sit at in compared to our asset management plans?
Thank you, Councillor Coetzee.
Thank you, and thank you to the 3 councillors that have already asked questions for this club, because this club doesn't need a lot of help, urgent help. I've got a follow-up question on Mr. Greer's answer through you, Mayor. You said with the extension of the lease to 10 to 15 years, the club can then ask for external upgrades or whatever, external funding for upgrades. Does that mean if they need to basically redo the whole kitchen, does that come from the external funds, or what do you mean by external funds? What would that be for?
Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question. I guess thinking of other city tenancies or even the Anship Club itself, there's a range of things that the funding over the years has provided. I mean, for instance, the Anship itself got a portion of funding in the early 2020s for air conditioning. That was from the federal member, I recall. The city then had a significant assistance it provided to, I think, a lot more than what the funding was, but assisted the club as well with upgrades, quite extensive air conditioning upgrades for the site. So it would be a matter of the club to work with us to identify the needs and then investigate with the potential funding sources on what those might, how those might be delivered. So a kitchen, I'm not sure. It could be an idea. It could be some external improvements. Obviously, through our community facilities team, the city has assisted with CSR FF processes in the past for clubs. So there's a whole range of things. But having that longer tenure, I would expect provides a better case to present when they are talking to other sources.
Councillor Coetzee.
Just to follow up, I'll try and make a question out of this. I do know that this club is going to a forum in the next 2 months or so to talk about what's the future of it. We do need to work on that matter. Is that correct?
Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you again for the question. I think that there is already some information in the report around the medium and the long term. So that the fact that the lease will provide, as I've talked about, some more context and certainty in the medium term for considering improvements. But it also does talk about the need for further planning on the site, and the recommendation itself, actually, in item 3 of the recommendation, refers to further engagement with the state. So up to now, there hasn't been a lot of direction on what would occur with a Yanchep open space. And look, it's probably still early days, but to provide that further clarity for the club, it's worth kicking that off. So I think that's what administration would certainly be looking to do.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, councillors? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. We keep hearing from everybody that we're doing a really great capital works programme and that we're investing in all new infrastructure. I've just worked out from what Councillor Miles said that it was 2007 when he was the councillor, that's 19 years ago. We're about to grant a up to 15-year lease. That'd take us to 2041. And this building has already been described as old and really not fit for purpose. As administration, Would administration agree that we have various older buildings around the city that probably do need to be factored into our LTFP at some point to be maintained appropriately, as they are our buildings and not the club buildings? Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
It's a very broad statement, Councillor Berry, but that's the intent of any LTFP. I think the councillors have expressed a desire to improve the condition of older buildings. As councillors have communicated to me, there is a bit of a backlog. What we've been doing over the last couple of years is increasing our capacity to deliver larger programs so we can clear some of that backlog. You can't do it all together all at once, just from a purely resourcing perspective from both human and also capital. But if you look at this year's program compared to historical, and there's some graphs that are available I can share with council, we've definitely built capacity, so we're going to be able to move through that quicker than what we have in the past. But there's, it's a big city with a lot of older assets, and we're certainly doing, I believe, what we can at this point in time. Always room for improvement. We should be using our LTP for that purpose. So it was a very broad statement you made, and it's certainly the city's intent to, one, build capacity, and two, to try and address these legacy issues as we push forward.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is just about insurance. Obviously, as these buildings age, it must be more difficult to insure the building, which does mean we're pushing that extra cost now onto the clubs to provide that insurance. Yet we're allowing the buildings technically to decay and force the building insurance up. Is there a possibility that you can actually show how a building, as it gets older, how the insurance relates to the building, so we can actually see how much these clubs are going to have to fork out to ensure the general safety? Because I think a lot of these buildings aren't even compliant anymore.
Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. I suppose just a point of context, the buildings have been inspected. It's not a case of them decaying. It's not a case of them necessarily being compliant or non-compliant by standards of their construction. What you will often have with older buildings, and not lease sites exclusively, will be that they were compliant in the time of their construction. If you were then to undertake modifications, you sometimes have new compliance requirements. Anyone with an older house will probably experience the same thing. In terms of the question about insurance, again, that's probably more a product of just the general age of the site. We've not had any suggestion from this club that the building is uninsurable or the premiums are prohibitive. As I mentioned in answer to a question earlier, if a tenant was to have issues with maintaining their own building insurance and wanted the city to investigate taking it over, we would have that conversation with them. So as this time, that's not an issue this particular tenant has raised.
Thank you. Councillor Figg.
Thank you, Mayor. This one might be a little bit cheeky because it does speak a little bit to the forum we will be having on the broader land parcel topic. But just going to page 542, and it talks to the archival record from local Yanchep newsletters that Lot 1 was transferred by Yanchep Sun City to the City of Wanneroo for $1, without providing further details on restrictions for the intended use. I guess this is a bit of a hypothetical, but it might be a bit of a rhetorical question as well. But would it be fair to say that it seems, going on the context provided here, that the land was provided to the city for the use as a social club / a civic and community use?
Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, the context that we've been able to discern is in that information, so it's probably not for me to speculate what the intentions were beyond that. I suppose the one point I would note is that there's been approximately 50 years of use consistent with that. Yanchep has grown significantly and changed around that, and there was no discussion at all of a Yanchep regional open space or alternative sites 50 years ago. So the context has changed, and there's clearly an intention to continue supporting the club in the long term. It just may be that in 15 years' time, council at that time has identified a site that is better and more fit for purpose to develop for them at that stage, while the Anship has grown in the meantime further.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr Greer, I sort of know how and why some of these buildings have been left like they are. Now, this particular one, I understand, is on freehold land, and past councils have always moved resolutions not to allow public facilities that don't generate revenue to be on freehold land because the revenue was required for the budget purposes. Am I correct in that understanding?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, that intention has been, it's still in our policies that non-commercial, community and sporting uses should be on Crown land where possible. There are some legacy sites, even in the last several years, council has considered some other sites where, community and sporting uses are on freehold, but where possible, they should be on Crown.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So just Mr Greer, so I guess finally, so if council wishes to leave the facility on part of that land, it would just require this council, to maybe make that amendment to the policy or to make it available so we can move on like the other facilities and start getting upgrades. Because I'm not sure what the Quinns Rocks land holding is, whether that's Crown land, and I think the Wanneroo one is also Crown freehold. I can't remember.
Mr Greer, can you clarify whether Quinns Rocks is on freehold or Crown land and the Wanneroo Sports and Social Club is on freehold or Clan land when we're comparing, when you respond to the Deputy Mayor's question? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd have to take Quinns on notice. Wanneroo is definitely on Crown land. In terms of I might just repeat the earlier part of the question.
So this council could, if wants to, adopt to utilise not necessarily all of that site, but a good portion of that site for a community use and leave it there in situ, and then do something with the other portion of the land. Would that be viable for us to achieve so we can at least have a good community facility?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, that would be a question for the council at the time, whether it was now or in the future. Potentially that would be a question as the timing on that open space was known further. I suppose the two other things the council at that time would probably want to have regard to would be the highest and best use of the land, and whether the highest and best use for the overall area of the land might be compromised by excising off portions. Sometimes a larger parcel can be used for different things than a smaller parcel. And the other thing is, typically in that context, administration would provide some information on the financial opportunity cost of what that land value would have been but for the community use, and that gives a context for I suppose almost the subsidy that council will be providing by supporting that ongoing community use.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this item this evening? Councillor Seif.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly I agree that there are some buildings that require maintenance more than others, and there are some areas like in the South Ward and up further north where the buildings are considerably older. Of course, that doesn't mean they're non-compliant. Can administration please confirm that what I've just stated is the exact reason why the council revisited the maintenance scoring system and schedule that we've just not too long ago endorsed?
Mr Singh.
Yes, Mayor, I think that was the right reason that Council decided that intervention levels will be at condition rating 7 or 8. But with the buildings, as I said earlier, it's at component level. Different components of the buildings are conditioned separately, and then we renew them when they reach that condition, or before they reach that condition.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, councillors? If there are no other questions on this item, we go to item 4.14, which is the proposed licence over portion of Reserve 12990, Wanneroo, between the City of Wanneroo and the Wanneroo Amateur Football Club Incorporated, the Wanneroo Cricket Club Incorporated, the Wanneroo Junior Football Club Incorporated and the Wanneroo Junior Cricket Club. Mr Greer, would you like to speak to this item at all?
No, Mayor, other than just to note it's continuing another long-term arrangement. There have, I think, been recent projects relating to improvements to this site.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr Greer, on page 553, the maintenance fee, $7,654. How does administration work the maintenance fee out compared with the one we've just talked to is only $4,600 for a bigger facility than the footy club?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just adding to my answer earlier, it's determined in consultation with our building maintenance team and looking at the schedule of works that would be applicable to that building.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? If there are no other questions, we now go to Chief Executive Officer Bill Parker, or his unit, the CEO's unit, and we go to item 4.15. Ms Coles. Ms Coles, would you like to speak to this item?
Just some brief comments, thank you, Mayor. So this item is for Council to consider an exemption request for the Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery Advisory Committee to have a meeting scheduled on Monday the 23rd of March 2026, which falls the day prior to a Council meeting. The exemption is requested due to the limited available Mondays in 2026, taking into account public holidays. The exemption would ensure that the committee can meet in the first quarter of 2026, adhering to the requirements of the committee. There's important updates pending that require discussion by the committee without further delay. So the proposed exemption does not compromise statutory obligations or the principles of confidentiality as outlined in the policy, and the adjusted timeline for the agenda distribution still allows sufficient time for members to prepare for the meeting, ensuring that the integrity of the decision making is maintained and administration. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. Is this the first exemption that's been required under this policy? And the second part to that question, maybe administration can speak to what's on page 559. It's my understanding that this policy was only adopted by the committee in November and it's already required to come back for further consideration of a minor amendment. Is that correct?
Ms Coles.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Rowe. I will have to take on notice to get the information in relation to exemptions. The information on page 559 is in relation to a report that will be coming to the Policy Review Committee meeting on Monday. We are finding it difficult to schedule committee meetings on specific days without having two meetings on the same day.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? There are no other questions on this item. I now go to motions on notice. We have one for Councillor Berry, 5.1 for Dogs on Leads, one from Councillor Rowe for undergrounding of power in the city of Wanneroo, 5.3 Councillor Wright, usage of Snap, Send and Solve, 5.4 Councillor Coetzee, asset protection measures for the Yanchepin Sports and Social Club and synthetic bowling green. And I know there are another 5 motions on notice in the works as well. Item 6, late reports to be circulated under a separate cover. 6.1, Councillor Wright feasibility study enhancement Lake Niagara. 6.2, tender number 25249, Wanneroo Showground Club extension. 6.3, Councillor Wright pedestrian overpass, Wanneroo Road. 6.4, CEO interim quarterly report and KPI update. 6.5, audit and risk and improvement committee membership update. We now have a... Mr Singh, would you like to speak to the 6.2, that tender?
Mayor, not specifically on that one. That report we are preparing and we are waiting for some information from state government on that one, and we will present that report if it is fully ready before at the council meeting. I sent another email this morning about Neves Road funding, which was announced on Friday. We have been in touch with the federal department. They want the funding agreement to be, funding offer to be, if council accepts it, to be accepted, and then funding agreement returned within 30 days. So we requested that can it be done by 31st of March, but they have come back and suggested that it needed to be done within 30 days. So there will be a need for a late report for council to consider at February OCM.
Thank you, Mr Singh. We now go to item 7, confidential. Do we have any questions on item 7.1? So if there are no questions on item 7.1, we won't go behind closed doors. Item 8, the date of the next meeting. The next ordinary council meeting has been scheduled for 6 p.m. on the 24th of February 2026 to be held at the Council Chamber Civic Centre, 23 Dundebar Road, Wanneroo. Item 9, closure, and I declared the council meeting closed at 20:56. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance.